Welcome to CIA Declassified. We are the podcast that pulls back the curtain on the world's most guarded secrets. From the reality of ancient technology in the city of Atlantis to deep state cryptids, radio wave mind control, and the chilling truth of UAPs, we go where the documents lead. Today we confront a truth that is not ancient, alien, or impossible, but tragically recent and all too human: the bureaucratic failure that led to September 11th. This is Operation Scorpion Trap, and it refers to the entire counterterrorism apparatus that was in place to detect and neutralize threats in the summer of 2001. Our focus is the core document CIA AAS-01 Memo 47. A searing internal post-mortem compiled within the analysis and assessment section immediately following the attacks. It confirms that the intelligence was there. The system simply refused to look. To understand the failure of 9/11, we must first understand the state of American intelligence prior to that day. The CIA, while ostensibly pursuing the same enemy, Al-Qaeda, operated in silos. This was known as the, quote, Intelligence Stovepipe, end quote, problem. The CIA's mandate was foreign. The agency was focused exclusively on intelligence gathering outside the United States. They had a wealth of information on Al-Qaeda operatives moving internationally, communicating, and meeting in places like Malaysia and Yemen. The FBI's mandate was domestic. The Bureau was focused on domestic law enforcement and counterterrorism, but was legally restricted from monitoring or surveilling individuals based purely on foreign intelligence leads. The CIA AAS-01 Memo 47 identifies this structural rift as the primary point of catastrophic weakness. The crucial information gathered overseas that identified the attackers was never properly and urgently transferred to the domestic law enforcement agency that could have acted on it. The memo notes, this is a quote, "The critical failure was not the absence of data, but the absolute impedance of data flow across mandated jurisdictional lines. The system prioritized protocol over prevention," end quote. The memo focuses heavily on the intelligence surrounding the first core plotter and the second essential plotter, who would become central to the 9/11 plot. The CIA was aware of these men, their connections to Al-Qaeda, and their movements from late 1999 onward. Most critically, intelligence analysts were aware that the two core travelers entered the United States in early 2000. However, due to the stovepipe, the separation between foreign and domestic intelligence, the crucial information that these two known terrorists were physically present inside the United States was never proactively flagged to the FBI for domestic tracking until it was far too late. The men were free to establish residence, open bank accounts, and enroll in flight schools. Let's dissect the core document, CIA AAS-01 Memo 47. This memo, written in the immediate aftermath of the attacks, details the specific, quote, near misses, end quote, and ignored warnings that proved the intelligence existed. One section, heavily focused on the August 2001 timeframe, details frantic but isolated attempts by individual analysts to connect the dots. The Phoenix memo from July 2001, an FBI agent in Phoenix noted the alarming trend of Middle Eastern men attending U.S. flight schools and suggested investigating them for terrorism link. The memo notes this critical prescient warning was filed, not actioned, by high-level FBI headquarters. The Minneapolis alarm, August 2001, the August arrest of the August detainee who displayed unusual focus on the navigation systems of Boeing 747s, despite only requesting training on small Cessnas. This arrest triggered alarm locally, but the CIA failed to link the detainee to the broader Al-Qaeda network they were tracking overseas. The Memo 47 analysts were horrified to find that the system had all of the component pieces, the names, the locations, the target, flight schools, but the bureaucratic structure acted as an insurmountable filter blocking all horizontal communications. Beyond simple bureaucratic rivalry, the memo points to a culture of what the authors termed, quote, willful ignorance, end quote. This refers to the systemic disinterest in low-probability, high-impact domestic threats. In the late 1990s, the intelligence community was still deeply focused on the Cold War model, tracking large state-sponsored foreign threats. The idea of small non-state actor using commercial planes as missiles was deemed too exotic, too cinematic to be a priority. Memo 47 details how information that did make it to high-level meetings was often dismissed due to a cognitive bias against the threat profile. Intelligence was often filtered through the lens of what was deemed possible or conventional, leading to the rejection of evidence that pointed towards an unconventional attack. The document states, it's another quote, "The failure was fundamentally rooted in the inability of senior analysts to project a threat vector outside of the established Cold War paradigms. The evidence was judged not by its content, but by its implausibility within existing structures." End quote. One of the most damning pieces of evidence detailed in the supporting logs for Operation Scorpion Trap concerns the attempted communication chain between the CIA's Counterterrorism Center and the FBI's New York field office. In early 2001, a specific CIA analyst tracked the two core travelers to a meeting in Malaysia. Knowing their importance, the analyst attempted to write a formal cable to the FBI's domestic counterterrorism unit. This is where the structural breakdown was total. The vetting obstacle. The cable was stalled by CIA lawyers and supervisors who feared sharing the information could compromise the CIA's foreign intelligence sources and methods. The denial of access. The FBI agents who were supposed to be pursuing al-Qaeda domestically were often denied access to the raw intelligence that would have allowed them to open formal surveillance files on the men in the U.S. The intelligence was guarded so zealously that the system was, in effect, protecting its sources more than it was protecting the nation. Memo 47's conclusion on this point is brutal. Quote, "Information was treated as a commodity to be protected, not a warning to be acted upon." End quote. The moments immediately following the attacks saw a period of profound internal shock and immediate panic within the CIA and FBI headquarters. The initial reaction was not cooperation, but a scramble for documentation, specifically who knew what and when. The internal correspondence reviewed for the Scorpion Trap report reveals a frantic classified effort to gather every document concerning the two core travelers in the flight school warnings. This was the opening act of the cover-up, not to conceal the truth from the public, but to shield individual departments and high-level supervisors from culpability. The directive was clear: centralize all data that could have been used and filter the release of that data through legal counsel to ensure that no single person or department could be immediately blamed for the colossal failure. The redactions in the Scorpion Trap documentation, particularly in the later addenda to Memo 47, are not designed to protect national security, but to protect individuals. Redaction Layer 1, senior leadership names. The names of every director, deputy director, and supervising lawyer who signed off on the non-sharing of the two core travelers' intelligence are heavily redacted. This protects the individuals who made the key decisions regarding intelligence stovepiping. Redaction Layer 2, foreign intelligence agency complicity. The memo mentions collaboration with specific foreign intelligence services, likely Saudi or Egyptian, who may have had advance warning or knowledge of the plot. Their identities are protected to maintain ongoing cooperation, but this also shields any potential complicity in overlooking that threat. The most chilling aspect of the redactions is the explicit removal of a section labeled, quote, "consequences and personal remediation," end quote. This section, completely blacked out, would detail the disciplinary actions, or lack thereof, taken against the supervisors who intentionally withheld the critical intelligence from domestic partners. Operation Scorpion Trap failed because the entire system was designed for the Cold War, not for the Age of Terror. The analysis of Memo 47 concluded that the failure was inevitable under the existing legal and bureaucratic framework. The analysis pointed to the legally enforced separation between domestic and foreign intelligence as the critical flaw. This separation, dating back to decades post-Watergate restrictions, was intended to prevent the CIA from spying on American citizens. Ironically, this restriction created a blind spot large enough for 19 terrorists to exploit. The memo concluded that the only way to prevent future attacks was the creation of a massive, unified intelligence agency, the very framework that would later emerge as the Director of National Intelligence in the consolidation of intelligence resources. The tragedy of 9/11 was the cost of fixing a broken, dysfunctional architecture that had been warned against for years. The enduring legacy of Scorpion Trap documents is the tragic irony they contained. The CIA spent decades and billions of dollars on fantastical projects like MKUltra, attempting to weaponize telepathy, dream control, and behavioral bombs. They were hunting for impossible threats, yet the actual existential threat, a small cell of men using cheap flight schools and commercial planes, slipped past because the agency was too obsessed with the theoretical and too disdainful of the mundane. The documents prove that the technology and the intelligence to stop the attacks were there, but the necessary trust and basic operational simplicity were not. The failure was not one of imagination, but one of humility. They refused to believe the enemy could be so simple, so effective, and so close. The cost was paid in blood. Operation Scorpion Trap stands as the ultimate counterpoint to the wild, dark histories we usually explore. This wasn't a secret cabal or a mind control experiment. It was a systemic collapse caused by bureaucracy, legalism, and professional pride. The CIA memo is the final, undeniable proof that the intelligence was there. The truth is often not in what is hidden, but in what is ignored. The price of that ignorance was the complete loss of national security on a beautiful, clear Tuesday morning. We have exposed the critical structural failures that led to the greatest intelligence disaster of our time. I'll see you in the archives. Remember to like this project and subscribe to the feed for surprises. We've explored the failures of the mundane. Next time we return to the fringe science of psychic warfare, we open a file on Project Ghost Fleet, codename MK Ultra Subproject 134. This project was a highly experimental effort to weaponize psychokinesis and remote sensing of consciousness using specialized containment and amplification devices. We examined the redacted operational logs detailing attempts to remotely influence physical objects, specifically the movement of small vessels or navigational tools using only concentrated mental energy. Was the CIA trying to build a telekinetic assassin? In the meantime, keep an eye on the shadows, mind your step, question your memories. I'll see you in the archives.